Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podderoonies, or Podsters if you prefer. This episode, as Poor Things, has been delayed. I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot for the rest of the year, but there we go. Can't change the schedule, unfortunately. But we will be talking weird films, people. Very exciting. And do not fret, we have guests again this week. Not D critics, no. Not C critics. Not even A critics. Who needs those guys? We have B critics, people. Courtney and Liz, how are you guys?
Doing well.
Hi, doing great. Happy to be here.
Good. So you have a great podcast. I've listened to a few. Tell us about your podcast and where can we find you?
Sure. So we are the B Critics. So hello.
Hi.
I'm Liz and
I'm Court. Hi.
Yeah. Typically, we talk about movies that people with similar tastes to us would enjoy hearing about. So these are going to be a little bit different from our usual content, but that's A-okay. We love new movies.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of take a different approach to the typical movie discussion. We bring more comedy and more like lighthearted banter. We curate seasons around a movie style or a genre or an actor or actress, anything like that. And when this episode comes out, we'll be wrapping up our Florence Pugh season. So,
nice.
Spotlight on Florence Pugh, the actress.
Cool. So, Poor Things was supposed to come out. What do we make of this one? Obviously, you picked one of Yorgos Lanthimos' films. So, this is a new from his work. Poor Things. Yeah, it looks pretty weird and wacky. Kind of more of a fantasy element here.
Mm-hmm.
Like a retelling of the Frankenstein story as well, it looks like from the trailer. I'm a big fan of Emma Stone. I think she's great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think I'm most excited for this one because of the cast. Like Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe. Like the movie itself does look real strange, which I'm sure after we go into deep discussion about another Yorgos Lanthimos film, then we'll be well prepared for it to be weird, but definitely excited about the cast. It looks incredible.
And we got to see Emma Stone be a little weird in Cruella. It was kind of like a wacky out there role for her, and she did it really, really well. So I'm excited to see what she does with Poor Things. I think it'll be really neat. Yeah,
it looks pretty funny as well. It was nice seeing Emma Stone punch someone in the face and kick someone in the balls. It's always fun to see. But yeah, Willem Dafoe, big fan of him as well. Like the makeup there, they're going for something quite bold there.
Yeah, he looked really strange in the trailer, but I think he does those kinds of roles well. Like in Spider-Man, for example, like as the Green Goblin, like it feels very Green Goblin-esque, to be honest, like really done up. And so I think it'll be great.
So very excited for Poor Things. I hope it does really well because it does look kind of expensive as well, which is kind of interesting. But who knows?
Yeah, it gives me like Asteroid City, like in the fact of Wes Anderson typically did like I feel like they were like lower budget films, like a little bit more indie, and that one had so many mainstream actors in it. And this is kind of in a similar vein, like Yorgos Lanthimos. Like I don't think he's like a super well-known director, but this one has like so many well-known actors that it could be like his big break, kind of similarly to Asteroid City.
Yeah, I agree, because I think there's definitely a comparison with him and like Wes Anderson, just less symmetry, and I feel like the humor from Lanthimos, like it's more to my taste, I think. Because obviously with Wes Anderson, it's very deadpan. This is still kind of deadpan, his films, but
still a little deadpan.
but not as much, you know, to bring the humor through, I would say.
Yeah.
So your choice then, guys, for weird films. What did you go for?
Yeah, so we chose The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is another Yorgos Lanthimos film. Liz, I don't know if you want to tell the story of how we came to pick this one.
Sure. So my husband Hayden, we talk about him on the podcast. He's been a guest on our podcast once now. But he really likes weird movies. That's like his MO is weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he recommended probably like a big list to us. And we just went and watched all of the trailers and narrowed it down to 2. So it was between The Killing of a Sacred Deer and a movie called The House.
Right.
And we just thought Killing of a Sacred Deer was just creepier and stranger and didn't make any sense. We're like, this is the definition of a weird movie. So
well, and the fact that it was the same director too. We thought it would be a really good like lead up to Poor Things. So
So what happens in Poor Things?
Yeah, so The Killing of a Sacred Deer portrays a cardiovascular surgeon, Stephen Murphy, played by Colin Farrell, and his family. Dr. Murphy takes on a mentorship of a former patient's son, Martin, who is mentally unwell, probably because Martin's father died on the surgery table under the supervision of a drunken Dr. Murphy and his anesthesiologist friend, Dr. Williams. Martin puts a curse on Dr. Murphy, I guess, so that unless Dr. Murphy kills one of his family, they will each subsequently die a slow and painful death. The story that ensues involves Martin patronizing the family, Dr. Murphy and his wife plagued with grief as they watch their children paralyzed, slowly dying. Dr. Murphy ends up killing one of his children to save his remaining family.
Nice. So I was kind of worried when I was watching this film because I'd not seen it before because Barry Keoghan's character is called Martin, and I was like, oh God, is this what these guys think of me? I don't know. Oh God, have they listened to way too many podcasts of ours? But yeah, I found it really quite weird, of course.
Very weird.
But yeah, really stressful at times. I was literally shouting at the TV like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? Please stop.
Yeah, I had the same experience. Like there was a couple times when I had like my hands like in my hair. Like what is going on? Like yeah.
But there are other times when it's absolutely hilarious as well. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure I'll go watch it immediately again, but it was really interesting. So had you guys not seen this before either then?
I had never seen it before, no.
First watch.
So what's your initial reactions, Courtney?
Yeah, so Liz and I rate all of our movies on Letterboxd. So every time I'm watching a movie now, I feel like I'm like thinking, oh, what am I going to rate it? And a lot of what I rate based on is rewatchability. And kind of what you were saying, I don't think I would go watch it again immediately, but I definitely think I would watch this one again, or like grab a friend who likes this type of movie and be like, we should watch this movie. Because it is like thought-provoking while you're watching it of like what is going to happen. And it's frustrating too that like nothing really happens for like a long time in the movie.
Yeah.
You're just kind of waiting for a while.
Liz?
Yeah, so this is like absolutely not my style of film. But I did watch the whole thing and I paid attention to the whole thing.
Didn't turn it off. Thumbs up. There you go.
No, I did not turn it off. Yeah. So like Courtney said, we rate on Letterboxd, and what I like to rate on is like just my personal enjoyment of the movie. So without looking at like production quality and all of that stuff, just kind of based on how I liked the movie, and I didn't like this one.
Okay.
But that's like not surprising. I'm definitely into like rom-coms and like fantasy and sci-fi and that kind of stuff. So just different.
Sure.
I like a good psychological thriller, or like thriller in general. So I enjoyed it. I only rated it 2.5 stars though out of 5. And I think just because it was a little bit slow, maybe.
Okay.
But there's a lot of stuff that I do enjoy about this movie and I'm excited to talk about.
So directing then, like that's quite an opening shot in this film.
Yes.
Of like open heart surgery right in close. That did not look fake either. That looked very real to me.
It was real.
It actually is real.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Colin Farrell got to sit in on a quadruple bypass heart surgery, and they filmed it.
Wow.
So
yeah, it looked real because it was real.
I hope you guys didn't make the same mistake I did and start watching this film after having a heavy dinner. I had to take a breath for a moment, like, okay, pause, and carry
I think
on.
I had just eaten, maybe. And I was like, whoa,
All
whoa,
right.
okay.
I was in the midst of eating. I was like,
right.
oh, this is great.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Yorgos Lanthimos, I can't say this surname, Lanthimos, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating director here. Like, the film is, in the beginning, it's like a family drama thriller with actors like acting like they're in a Wes Anderson film, but like the symmetry is replaced by these like big wide shots that literally cover the entirety of the set sometimes. And you have these like big high angle tracking shots in the hospital, like you're in the Overlook Hotel in The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
From a directional point of view, like the film feels like a creepy horror film, but the story is just still simmering on its family drama. So it's an interesting mix of tones at the start. Like the music as well is very creepy at times, and I would say very on the nose as well.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, we were listening to the soundtrack, like preparing for this episode. We were listening to it together, and we both were like, I just like the music was great.
Mm-hmm.
It added like depth to a lot of the scenes, and it just sounded good. It was just good. It worked.
Yeah, I loved the like orchestral, like classical vibe of the music, because that made it feel kind of like you were saying, like a family drama, like more like a story. But then the bits where they had like the distorted accordion, that was so creepy to me and like very effective at like making me feel very like dreadful
Spooky.
Almost inside. Yeah.
I think the music is really great in this, and it's used very sparingly, I would say, but when it's used, it's the most prominent force in the film, I would say. Like, one of the best moments of music is when, like, near the end of the film, when Stephen has got Martin hostage in the basement, like, Stephen punches Martin and then Martin bites Stephen, and then to make a point, Martin bites his own arm. And you assume he'll just let go. But no, he bites a chunk of flesh out of his arm and spits it out. But the surprise is highlighted by this sudden high-pitched music, almost like a jump scare. Like, the music is almost played like a sound effect almost too. Plus, it's when you know Martin is crazy.
Yeah. Martin, have you seen Prisoners?
Yes,
that movie?
I have, yeah.
When that scene came on, I was like, uh-oh. I was like, I really hope we're not going to be having Prisoners, because that was bad. Those scenes were bad. It wasn't as violent as Prisoners was, but there were a couple points where I was like, this is like, both of them are psycho.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I wouldn't say as psycho as Hugh Jackman, no, but at points in that film, I was like, please, someone hold back Hugh Jackman. He's gonna
somebody
kill
stop this. It's crazy.
Well, I do think the music was so important, though, kind of to what you're saying, Martin, because there were moments where there wasn't like a lot of action and there wasn't like a ton going on. And so I think without the music, it would have been like almost a little bit too disconnected or like loose and hard to follow. Because like I said, I struggled a little bit with it being slow. And so I think the
Mm.
music like kept you intrigued because it kept that like dreadful feeling in your heart, or like gave you that jump scare, like adrenaline spike that you needed to like be
Yeah.
involved in the movie.
And as the film goes on, as you're watching it, like the camera seems to be on the move more and more, I would say. And like
Mhm.
Martin Barry Keoghan's character is at Colin Farrell's family home, and they're all sat there drinking lemonade. And when they cut to Martin, like the camera is like moving in and out on him and very static on the rest of the family. You know, Martin seems to be interested in the daughter Kim. She very awkwardly sings to Martin on their walk. The film very much separates Martin from the rest as this very like off kilter character. Then when he phones Stephen to return the favor and invite them to his house, you know, the music turns very sinister. So it's interesting that the film is clearly pointing the finger at Martin that this guy is a wrong'un. You know, there's not a lot of subtlety here in the direction.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I think you almost immediately get the sense that he's going to be, if not like the antagonist of the film, one of the antagonists of the film, just by the way he's introduced. Like he shows up late, he's kind of awkward, and then just starts like showing up. And you're like, all right, like something's going on with this guy, and I don't think we're supposed to like it.
Always a bit of mystery about him too, because like Dr. Murphy, for example, when he introduces him at the hospital, like, you know, he's lying about who he is, and like,
yeah, he lies about it.
it's confusing. But I'm glad you mentioned the song too that Kim sings to him.
Right.
I hated that.
That's so awkward.
Very awkward. Like I had a hard time watching it, but it's interesting because that song is highlighted in the trailer for this movie.
Mhm.
Right.
I loved the trailer for this movie. I don't know why. I thought
Okay.
it was like so creepy and intriguing, and it was a lot of what made me like vote for this movie when me and Liz were trying to pick
Sure.
which one to do. But it's weird because in the trailer it was used in like a really creepy way, and then in the movie it's almost like a bit of comedy. Like it's so
Yeah.
awkward that it was like, what are you doing? Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time with like cringe humor like that. Like
Yeah,
sometimes it's
same.
good, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know, I can't watch this.
Like crawling in your own skin. You're like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm gonna go take a shower.
Yeah, I've had that recently with like Succession, with a character called Greg. If you've seen that, listeners, then you'll know what I mean. But yeah, certainly that song was like, oh god, for me. So favorite shot or scene, Liz? What are you going for a film that you didn't like much?
Yeah, so I actually decided to choose like my most hated scene from the movie.
Okay. Fair enough.
And it's at the end when they've kind of come to the end of their line of, all right, it's time to make a decision now. Like
Yeah.
you only have so much time. And Steven kidnaps his family in their own house, tapes them all up, puts bags over their heads or pillowcases, and then just starts like spinning around to let fate decide who's going to die. And I was like, this is literally the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I
Yeah.
hate everything about this. It's so uncomfortable. It makes you feel bad for everyone involved, but somehow you don't feel bad for Steven at all. I don't know. It was just very well done, but like for me, just like I just like hated that part of the movie. I was like, this is so bad.
Yeah, that's mine as well. I wouldn't say favorite scene, but just like that's the
Yeah.
scene that's most affecting, and that's definitely the scene where I was literally shouting at the TV saying, "Oh God, Jesus Christ, stop!"
Yeah. Yeah, please put an end to this.
Yeah, and there's a moment like a few times when he misses the shot as he's basically playing spin the bottle. And you're like, oh, is he going to like give up, or is he going to try something else, or just stop?
It just keeps going.
You know, but he doesn't, and then poor Bob gets it.
No.
It's just so highly strung, and the tension is insane in that point. Then you know that whatever this was has been lifted as Kim is eating chips drowned in ketchup,
Yeah.
which is a shame to me, but there we go. I'm more of a mayo and chips man myself.
Oh, interesting. I prefer ranch dressing, so
Okay.
Was obsessed with ranch dressing.
I really
Yeah.
love ranch dressing. I'll put it on anything.
Was that the scene caught where you were like, yeah, you had your hands in your hair at that point? Or
There were a few scenes, but I think it was before that. I had a lot of moments throughout this movie where I was like, these people are so weird. Like, what's going on? I think those were the moments. I had a hard time picking a shot that I really liked because I liked a lot of them. Like you mentioned earlier, the like high angle shots of them like walking through the hospital and stuff like that. Like
yeah.
I really enjoyed those moments. But I think one that was like pretty powerful for me was when Nicole Kidman, kind of towards the beginning of the movie, kind of played a corpse for her husband. And you get that scene where she like lays back on the bed and then like kind of like lets her head hang back and she just like looks like a corpse. And the reason I picked that point, because I know that's like a really weird answer, but is I just thought it was so powerful, and that in that moment I was like, what is she doing? Like I was so like, what is going on? And then you kind of realize that he's maybe into like necrophilia or something. And then you start to be like, okay, this dude is strange. And that's the moment that I think it kind of goes from being like a normal movie to like, no, something's off here.
Yeah, something is very weird with the whole family.
That scene in particular is very, very strange. You know, it's all practically silent and very odd.
Super odd.
You kind of have to sit there like with your own thoughts, like.
And you're thinking like, what has this got to do with like the rest of the film? Like their relationships doesn't seem particularly very loving. It's very emotionless, this family, I would say.
Super emotionless. Yeah. Everybody, like all the characters are like very stoic and straightforward, and like a lot of the dialogue is very clinical, like from everybody.
So directing score for me for The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Yeah, I like the directing from Yorgos. I'll probably go like an 8.2 or something. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of the stronger elements of the film, I would say. How about you guys?
Yeah, I think we agreed.
Yeah, very similar.
Collectively, we landed at a 7.5.
I think there's like, you can't watch this movie and not think that it was well made.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at least. Even if you don't like the content of the film or it's not your style, like you can appreciate that it's well done.
Yeah.
They got their point across.
So are your issues with the film like screenplay related then, Liz, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't like the story. Like I thought there was like some stuff missing from the story. I really do not appreciate like an open ending to a movie. Like I want to know the end. And so that was tough for me.
Right.
Like I got to the end and I was like, this is a joke. Like this could not be how they're letting this movie end. Like nobody's come to justice. There's been like multiple murders happened here. And nobody's in trouble. Like what is going on?
It didn't. That's interesting you say that, because it didn't feel particularly open-ended to me personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was pretty closed. Yeah.
Yeah, because the curse is, well, they don't specifically say it's a curse, I don't think, but that's maybe what you assume it is. Stephen kills Bob, and Kim is walking again and eating chips that are drowned in ketchup. So it's so you know that there's no situation left anymore for these characters to deal with. But I kind of like that last shot on Barry Keoghan where he's like just kind of chilling at the restaurant. It's like, yeah, we're even now.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what was going on there. Like, he and Kim were still, like, exchanging looks. I was like, is Kim really still interested in this guy? Like, come on. Come on. After everything you just put your family through, come on.
I think that there's a lot within the story that is implied that they don't directly tell you. And I think that might contribute to that feeling that you're having. Because, like, I notice you saying that whenever we talk about movies where there's some sort of mystery involved. We're doing a murder mystery season right now, and like Liz always wants to know like exactly what's happening with everyone's motivations. And like
I need the details.
they don't exactly like you don't ever get that from this movie
No.
like directly. You kind of have to like
infer,
just make sure you connect the dots on your own.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say, Court, that the film is like slow paced. I didn't feel it was particularly slow paced, but not a lot happens in the film in the first hour. There's a lot of like intrigue here, like keeping you going with like Martin being obsessed with Stephen and his family. And when Martin basically sets Stephen up with his mum having a hand fetish, and obviously Stephen leaves quickly and he starts avoiding Martin. You know, Martin starts going out with his daughter. Then Bob starts to lose feeling in his legs. Then when Martin manages to speak to Stephen in the hospital, Martin says to him very quickly that because you killed my dad, you have to kill a member of your family, and if you don't, they will all die. And he says this very politely, I must say, and then he leaves. It's the holy shit moment of information, you know, and Stephen barely flinches. It's mentioned briefly that his father dies from heart surgery gone wrong, but it's so brief that you don't think it's important. You think of it as nothing, really. Then this hits you, and it becomes a very different film so suddenly, which I kind of loved that scene.
Yeah, I think something interesting about that scene too was when he was explaining what was going to happen, it sounded almost as if they had already discussed that this was what was coming, and that Stephen had already been told, here's what's about to happen to your family, and when the time comes, I'll let you know that it's time. And for some reason, Stephen had elected not to do anything about the situation. Maybe he didn't believe it. I'm not really sure, but I was like, all right, so this sounds like you've already heard it before, and like we're hearing it for the first time, but you do not seem surprised.
No.
So I didn't like that. I was like,
Yeah, Colin Farrell was like straight faced completely. He was like, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never understood why everybody came across so like stoic and apathetic throughout the movie. Because there was a lot of like shit going down, and then like they were just always like straight faced. And it wasn't just Colin Farrell. Like I feel like everybody was acting that way.
It seemed too that they all knew what was going on. Kim was the first one, I'm sure she was told by Martin, and she was just like okay with it. She was like, yeah, my dad has to deal with this now. That would not be my reaction.
She was cursed.
Do they get curses put on them all the time? I don't know. Like, yeah, Dad will sort it out. It's fine.
It's just like how the world works.
Yeah, I lost the use of my arms the other day. So Dad sorted it. But yeah, Kim is kind of a fascinating character because, I mean, after like Martin tells Stephen that he has to kill one of his family or his whole family will die, Bob can't feel anything in his legs, and then his sister can't feel anything in his legs either. You know, there appears to be like nothing physically wrong with them. It can only be psychological, certainly in Stephen's eyes. So you're like, Martin has to be doing this, but it's just, he's just a medical student, and frankly, he doesn't seem that intelligent either. So how the hell is he doing this? Then Kim gets a phone call from Martin, and Kim walks to the window. She can use her legs all of a sudden, and Bob tries it and he falls off the bed. So it's like Martin can control when they can walk somehow. Maybe because Kim is so in love with Martin that allows her to walk. You know, Martin gets loads of attention. I don't know. Then Kim says to her mum that the same thing will happen to her, like she'll lose feeling in her legs too. And you're like, what does this Kim actually know about this situation? It doesn't really come to anything in the end, but I thought it was interesting that does Kim know more than she's letting on, you know, in that moment especially.
She almost has like a god complex with Martin.
Yeah.
Like towards the end when she's like, all right, like I'm done with all this, like let's run away together, you really get to see like how complex their relationship is, because she's like, all right, just like make it stop, like let's like run away together. Like, you have the power to do this, and he doesn't. It's very strange.
The way that I interpret it is like a lot of thriller horror movies that involve children. I feel like there's always a lot of conversations that happen between the children and the bad guy that you don't see, and that the kids always know more than like you as the viewer are aware of. So I feel like that was kind of the same in this instance, and like why they were targeted first, as opposed to like Nicole Kidman's character getting targeted, which she never did. She never lost the feeling in her legs. I kept waiting for it to happen.
But she did get tired because she slept in a couple times. They show her sleeping in. So it was like starting for her.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really the same thing though. As did they get tired before they lost feeling in their legs?
That was what he said was like the first thing.
Oh, okay.
They'll get very tired, and then they'll start to lose feeling, or I guess mobility. I don't know.
And then bleed from their eyes.
Yeah.
Last thing.
That is terrifying. That's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, you don't recover from seeing that.
That was so creepy. And then when Kim was like, Dad, Bob's dying.
It's like, time to make a decision.
Yeah. It's time to kill one of my children now.
Ugh.
That was a loop, though, that I never felt was closed, was like Martin and like how he got the power to do the things that he was doing, like how he could do the curse. Like, that never made sense to me.
I mean, is that the only explanation you're going for then? That it can only just be a curse?
There was also a brief moment where I thought they were in on it, where I thought Kim and Bob, like Martin had talked them into acting like they couldn't use their legs and they didn't have appetite.
So they were faking this whole time.
Yeah, there was like a moment where I was like, all right, this has got to be fake. But then the bleeding from the eyes thing, I was like, no.
Can't fake that.
There's no way it was fake.
No.
I mean, but do you, maybe not Liz, but do you like the fact that they don't explain this? I mean, I don't mind it at all. I think it just adds to the mystery of this character.
Yeah, I didn't mind. I thought it was okay that they didn't tell you.
So I think if you knew, you would lose a lot of the intrigue, and it's difficult to know where you would put that information in the movie as a reveal in the film to like, oh no, actually Barry Keoghan has actually drugged them or put a curse on them. Because I don't think this type of film has a particular like fantasy element in there at all whatsoever, frankly. Yes, it's very weird, but you only really get the weirdness from the characters. Like, setting wise in the environment, it all feels very real and normal. But yeah, it's interesting to try and figure it out anyway.
I have no idea what it was. And I spent like a little bit of time trying to figure it out. Like, he could have been like injecting them with some sort of weird chemical or something. I don't know. Like, it seems like he had access to the house if he wanted to get in there. And that kind of goes to what I was saying earlier about the kids definitely having had conversations with him, like, that we just didn't know about. Like, there was definitely a lot of stuff that we didn't know going on. But yeah, I mean, I finished the movie and like that, I didn't feel that same feeling that Liz felt about it being like still open-ended. I felt like he was probably done with them, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I think the second half of the film is much like the first, where not much happens really. Like, Stephen gets, a bit mad at times, but then kidnaps Martin and ties him up in the basement. Then that doesn't really move the film along, like, other than Martin having a bite of Stephen and himself, and Anna, Nicole Kidman's character, kissing Martin's feet. Then, strikes a pose on the bed again. Then when Bob is bleeding from his eyes, it seems like, all of a sudden you have like a holy shit moment again when Stephen plays this spin the bottle game, but instead it's a rifle. It escalates like very quickly in these big points of this, really serious information dump from Barry Keoghan that, if you don't kill a member of your family, your whole family will die. And then you have this moment near the end where, he has to make a decision now and on who to kill, because there's just no other option. So it's just really interesting, like, that in a film like this where there's very little that actually happens, but for me anyway, my attention was held, and you have these two like spike moments that something huge happens, which I found really interesting in this film.
Yeah. In the second half, you also get to see like the very brief decision-making process that he's trying to go through. You get to see the kids trying to sway his decision-making process. And then you also see him like go to their school and be like, all right, well, which one is the better kid? It's like, nobody can make this decision for you. Like, I don't know. He was like grasping. And then after that point is kind of where you see him break down. It's the first emotional moment in the movie.
Yeah.
That was like a turning point in the movie because you see his humanity. Up to that point, you hadn't really seen it. And then all of a sudden, he's the crying dad that doesn't know what to do because he's going to lose one or potentially more of his family members.
Yeah, because throughout the film, like, he's very straight-faced. He's very much hiding his emotions, like, well, all of the characters are, but he's crying in that moment because he's just pushed to such an extreme position that he can no longer hide anything anymore.
Do you think that's like a play on his alcoholism? Like, the whole tone of the movie being very stoic and like emotionless, like almost like how somebody who's an alcoholic will like drink and kind of put themselves in like a, I don't know, like a stupor, like a haze, so they kind of can get through the day, and then kind of what's going on around him breaks through it, sort of, and that's when we get his first bit of emotion.
Maybe.
Very intuitive of you.
Just occurred to me now. There's got to be something, because nobody interacts with people like that.
No.
No, not normal people.
The performances are very kind of like low-end, if you will, not heightened. There's some great like funny lines in this.
There really are.
Yeah, like in the middle of a conversation at a party, Colin Farrell says, "Our daughter started menstruating last week."
Yes.
Out of nowhere.
Why do you share that information?
I know.
Like, nobody cares.
And everybody just like acts like it's totally normal that he mentioned that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Huge milestone for your child. Congratulations.
Enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked the one when he says, a surgeon never kills a patient, an anesthesiologist can kill a patient, but a surgeon never can. And then that quote gets flipped by the anesthesiologist like later in the film.
You're like, ooh, who's lying and who's telling the truth?
Yeah. Sounds like maybe they're not as good of friends as they say they are.
You have lovely hands.
Yeah, you have lovely hands. That was a whole creepy like side plot thing that was going on with the hands and the feet, and like I don't love that.
One that is really disgusting, but I won't let you leave until you've tried my tart. Is really bad. From Barry Keoghan's mother.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That whole sequence, like with him having dinner at their house, I think like at first you're kind of thinking maybe Martin is just strange. Like he's just a little bit different. And so Steven is trying to like appease that and maybe like keep him stable. And then the whole situation happens where Steven's like, oh, please stay for a movie. In which case, like, my mom would say, that's really unnecessary. Like, thank you for having dinner with us, but like, go back to your family. And she says, like, oh, I would love for you to stay for a movie. And you're like, this is not just a mentorship. What else is going on here?
Yep, she wants some hand stuff. Some hand play.
Yeah, she definitely does. She's not going down without a fight either.
Yeah. I don't suppose you've got any pubes I can have by any chance?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So funny.
I was like, where is he going with this? Like, they have it. That scene makes you think that maybe they've talked about it being witchcraft.
Yeah.
He's like, I need the teeth of a baby crocodile and all these other things. And you're like, is that really like the antidote? Or are you just making things up? like, what, what is it?
Yeah, he's making things up on the fly, definitely. He's just trying to take the piss out of Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that made me laugh out loud. I was like, wow, that is some line. But I think my favorite, though, I'm not sure I could have that as my favorite, but my favorite, though, is near the beginning where Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman, I guess you can't really say it as a sex scene, but like Nicole Kidman says, tomorrow I'm going to bake a lemon cake and nobody's going to eat any of it but you. I mean, that's some sexy talk right there, I must say.
Yeah, I did catch on that. And then like there was a lot of like baking innuendos in this film,
Yes.
like with that and the tart. I was like, what is going on with these ladies and their baking?
Yeah. Have you got a favorite line, Liz?
Yes. I think it's when Bob had just been like admitted to the hospital for the second time and Steven's trying to get him to admit that they're faking it. And he says, I will take my electric razor and I will shave your head and make you eat your hair. And then he says, I will literally make you eat your hair. It's like,
that is super harsh.
That is not something my dad ever would have said to me.
It was interesting though to have that like bit of comedy in that so like serious and frantic moment of Colin Farrell, and then he says like eat your hair, and I kind of like laughed and I was like, oh, weird.
Yeah. But I mean, like when he's forcing Bob to like eat a donut as well, that's just as disturbing. I would say, even though it's like a tasty donut, but it's like, no, he doesn't want to eat it, leave him alone.
Yeah, that was really strange, like shoving it in his face. You have got to calm down, my friend.
Yeah, I think the fact that Colin Farrell is so like stoic throughout the movie, like whenever you see him have moments like that, like they're so much more powerful and like memorable.
Have you got a favorite, Courtney, then?
Mine was definitely the first one that you said, the Colin Farrell saying our daughter started menstruating last week. When that happened, he said it so casually. Like he was just like at a dinner party, like having conversation. And he said, I had to stop and rewind it and be like, wait a second, is that what he actually just said? Because that doesn't fit. And if I can relate to it, and not that my dad would say something like that, but like I feel like my dad always says things like to his friends or like coworkers about me because he's like proud of me, and I'm like, Dad, you don't have to tell them all my like personal business. And then like that, like I would be traumatized if I ever found out my dad was saying something like that. And I guess it's just because they're all like doctors, and so they like talk about it so casually. Yeah. But then Kim and Bob had a similar conversation like right after that, because I think Bob was like fascinated with having hair under his arms, and then Kim tells him that she started menstruating last week. And also just the fact that she says menstruating, maybe it's because her parents are both doctors, and so like they say stuff like that, and that's where she gets that language. But I would, as a like 12, 13-year-old, would never have said something like that.
Sometimes I felt like when I was watching it, there is kind of this weird like sexual tension between Stephen and Martin sometimes. Because, like, when Stephen is in the hospital and he asks to see his hair under his arms, I was like, there's no way Stephen is going to let him show him his hair under his arms. And yet he does. He, like, opens his shirt. I'm like, what the hell? Someone could walk in at any moment.
I actually thought for sure that's where the film was going. Like, really? I thought they were going to start some sort of relationship, and then it didn't happen. It kind of went the other way, but...
I mean... Like, he would just show him the door, just like, no, thank you, Martin. Out you go, please. That's enough. But he doesn't really, he hesitates a little bit, but he's like, okay, shirt open.
Yeah, but he was always towing the line with his interactions with Martin. Like, that was just one example. But then kind of to call back to when he does go to have dinner at Martin's house and he stays for too long and watches the movie with them, like, he's kind of just like pushing it like a little too far, because he does stop when Martin's mother advances on him and he doesn't like do anything wrong, but it's still like, why is he taking it just a little bit too far in all these scenarios?
So screenplay score for me, yeah, you know what, I really kind of liked it. It's just got this really great weird quality to it. A lot of great intrigue, and I do kind of like the fact that you don't know why this is happening to Kim and Bob. Like, there's just no way Martin could be causing this. And you're just racking your brain like, how, why? And I do kind of like that. And it didn't feel frustrating to me, just because I think it just kind of fitted with the tone of the film. So yeah, I think I'd go like an 8.3, 8.4.
Wow.
And it's hilarious at times. It's really funny.
You are going to be shocked with our
Okay.
our score here.
So I think I struggle a little bit more with like the dark comedy and the cringe comedy. So like,
Right.
I think I recognized that it was kind of funny at some points. I did mention I like laughed a few times, but sometimes it made me really uncomfortable. And then I did find the story to be like a little bit, I guess maybe not slow is the right word, but like not a lot happened. So even though like it was engaging me, I was kind of like on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like, when is something going to happen? So collectively, we gave it a 4.5, 4.5.
4.5 for your own movie.
Yeah.
Wow. We got some harsh B critics today, people.
Yeah, we were not biased at all in our ratings. So.
No.
No, that's fine. Me defending your own movie. But, sometimes for me, the best films are when like nothing happens for ages. So that's kind of my bag sometimes. Because I think sometimes when so much happens, you're always sometimes you're like questioning things too much. So I do like it for me. So acting then. We kind of talked about this scene a little bit, but like the first thing you notice about the acting in this film is that it's very robotic. Like Colin Farrell is the most robotic, I would say, I think, but Nicole Kidman is quite robotic too, but in a good way. Like, you know, they bring a lot of humor to the film for me, but she kind of keeps her elegance. There's quite a weird like sex scene where Kidman derobes and lies on the bed with her head hanging off the bed, and Colin Farrell's like, yeah, that's perfect, while warming up, let's say. Then he's like half treating us then he's like half treating her like a corpse and half like a woman, and you know, Kidman is doing nothing. It's kind of quite bizarre and weird. Yeah, I've never really seen like a sex scene like that, to be honest.
Yeah, that was very strange. I literally wrote down, I was like, what is this? Like, what kind of a fetish is going on? Like, what are we witnessing? And like, they do it multiple times throughout the film. You even see the daughter mimic that same situation.
Yes, that was crazy.
Yeah, that I don't understand. I understand people have their own things. I just cannot get with that one. I don't know. I don't know.
I guess it's like a control and power thing that, like, no, Stephen has to have complete power here. That's how he likes it, I guess. But it's just the fact that Nicole Kidman starts off with her head hanging off the bed and he has to literally pull her up. That was kind of the really interesting thing to me.
It drags her away like a monster.
Yeah, I definitely thought that scene was really powerful. And I mentioned it earlier that it was powerful to me because it was the first moment where I was like, what the fuck, when I was watching this film. And then that I was kind of in that state of mind for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, they definitely set the tone for the film like right off the bat. Like you see that almost immediately and you're like, okay, like that's how this film is going to go.
I mentioned this scene in one of our favorite lines, but I loved Colin Farrell in the movie. Like, yes, he's very emotionless throughout most of the film, but his performance definitely fits with the tone of the film for me. But when he does show some emotion, when he's trashing the kitchen looking for pubes, he's raising his voice, but it still feels relatively controlled. He could really explode on Nicole Kidman at any moment. I feel like I mentioned this quite a lot on this podcast, but I always find like controlled rage like really fascinating in a performance, and I think Colin Farrell is no different here. I think he's tremendous.
Yeah, I personally think all of the acting was like top notch.
Yeah.
I think they all did really well. They were all like on the same level. There wasn't anyone that I felt was bad in the film, like wasn't believable or anything like that.
And even the kid actors who play Kim and Bob, like I'm pretty notorious on this podcast for saying that kid performances are really bad. I'm like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But these guys are really good, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too.
They didn't like distract me or pull me out of the film at all.
It was like they were completely bought in. They had really good instructions from the director and the screenwriters. Everybody was like on the same page. They all had the same types of emotions or lack of emotions, and that part worked really well.
Barry Keoghan
Amazing.
is wonderfully weird and creepy in this film. But the scene where he like bites himself is obviously very disturbing, that he hardly reacts at all. But the scene where he's talking to Anna, Nicole Kidman, and says that he's more upset about finding out that eating spaghetti is the same for everyone than learning that his father died was way more disturbing to me, because he's slightly more emotional than he's been in this film. Very, very slight. But Barry Keoghan just has this look about him that he's just not very clever and he's quite like very childlike and has an innocence quality to him, yet he holds like all the cards in this film. You know, he's a very odd dude.
You can really tell like how smart he is, and it's almost like he's playing dumb and playing like, oh, like I'm just a kid, like I can't be held responsible, or like how would I know, or anything like that. But you definitely get the feeling of like this kid knows exactly what's going on.
And you're not going to get any answers.
Yeah, the spaghetti thing was really powerful to me, especially like as he was like eating spaghetti in like such a disgusting way while he was executing all those lines.
It was all over his face.
Yeah, and I thought Nicole Kidman's performance in that scene was really good too. I think that was like the first time you kind of got into his head a little bit more than you had gotten earlier in the film. And so it was kind of, to me, I don't know if it showed that he was like smart necessarily. It just showed that his motivations were like really off. Like there was something really, really off about this guy. And I think that was kind of like, for every character, there was a moment where they first break from their like stoicism or like the clinical way that they're talking and like emotionlessness. And then like the moment that they break from it, you're like, oh, like they're a weird one. And it happens with like every single character. Like even the kids have those moments. I also liked him anytime he would start explaining like what was happening to Colin Farrell's family. The way that he executed those lines like really quickly, I thought that was really interesting, and it was so creepy to me the way that he executed those lines.
Yeah, it was like he was just reading off a shopping list, or he's just remembering lines in a play or a film.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I got to say. I'm just going to get it out.
And he was almost like saying it so fast, like he's like, "You better be listening because I'm about to tell you what's going on, and this is your one shot to hear it." And like it was kind of like too, like he was like breaking from his normal like state of mind or state of consciousness to this like other one that was like breaking through.
Yeah. So favorite performance, Liz? Who are you going for?
I really liked, I love everything that Nicole Kidman does.
Right.
So I'm going to say Nicole Kidman is my like favorite part of this movie.
Okay.
I thought she was super, super great. There was the scene where she is tending to the wounds of Martin and kissing his feet was especially like, it felt like a Nicole Kidman scene. Like that's what she does really well. And it just worked. I thought it worked really well.
She kisses feet well. Okay. Courtney.
I hated that scene so much. I like just don't like feet in general. So anytime an actor like has a thing with feet, because there's certain ones that, or a director has things with feet, like there's certain ones that do. Like I'm just like, oh, please. I want to say Barry Keoghan because I thought he was incredible, but I'm actually going to say Colin Farrell was my favorite because I haven't seen a lot of his performances. And this made me really want to go watch a bunch of Colin Farrell movies. Like, I'm really intrigued by him now.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Barry Keoghan. I think he's just the go-to creepy guy now in cinema. And yeah, he's at the top of the list for me in that type of character. And yeah, it's just a real like mystical quality about his acting that you really don't know what he's thinking at any moment, which usually you would say that's a bad thing about an actor, but here it's really great, I think. Yeah, so I'll go with Barry Keoghan. So acting score for me, yeah, I think, yeah, it's pretty good. I think I'll probably still go in the 8s. I'll probably go like a straight 8 for me. Even Barry Keoghan is very good, so
yeah, he was so good.
I'll go 8.2.
I think our score is going to surprise you.
Right.
We really loved the acting in this movie.
Okay.
I was genuinely impressed with everybody, and including the kids, as you mentioned. So we give it a 9 out of 10.
Nice. Cool. Right, let's add up the scores then for The Killing of a Sacred Deer. The Killing of a Sacred Deer gets exactly 46 points.
Ooh. How does that compare to like most of the movies that you do?
I don't think it's amazing.
Okay.
Because of the 4.5.
Oh, yikes, sorry.
It's definitely not in the top 10, I don't think. But I think it could be, I think it still could be a tight one in this one, I think. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.